On a normal highway, traffic is the headache. On the Tarim Desert Highway, the ground itself fights you. This road runs straight through the Taklamakan Desert, a sand sea where dunes migrate, rebuild, and reload the surface after every serious wind. Treat that like a regular cleanup job, and the desert takes the asphalt back. China answered with one of the boldest, biggest desert survival builds on Earth, a buried water network that feeds a living barrier along the road, so drifting sand loses speed, drops out, and stops piling onto the pavement. An official report put the annual water use for this protection system at no more than 6 million cubic meters. That equals about 6 billion liters delivered through pipes and drip lines into the desert by design. Before anyone poured concrete or rolled asphalt, engineers had to pick a corridor that could survive. A report from People's Daily Online described a route selection team entering the desert in March 1990, collecting thousands of survey points and samples, then mapping wind and sand behavior before locking a line through terrain that refuses to stay still. Route selection sounds boring until you see the penalty for getting it wrong. Miss the safer corridor, and the road spends its whole life trapped in heavier dune movement, deeper burial, and higher maintenance costs. Construction started in the early 1990s and the highway was completed in 1995. A widely reported figure describes it as 522 kilometers long, running north to south across the Taklamakan. This corridor exists because the Tarim Basin oil and gas boom needed a direct supply route. Equipment, crews, fuel, and emergency response all move faster on a straight line. A CGTN report on the project said the highway cut the distance from Urumqi to Hotan by 500 kilometers. Then the desert pushed back. Sand drift started climbing onto the road surface. In the worst spots, dunes could cover sections fast enough to turn transport into a repeated fight. Sand transport has its own physics. Wind only needs to cross a threshold where grains start hopping. Once grains hop, they hit the other grains and launch them too. That chain reaction builds drifting sheets that thicken into dunes. Now put a highway in the way. The road surface disrupts airflow. The edges create turbulence. The sand finds new places to drop out. Any low spot becomes a trap. Any shoulder becomes a ramp. That is why this road needed more than plows and patrols. It needed a way to change wind behavior before sand reaches the asphalt. The early defense used physical sand control. Straw checkerboards are a classic desert method. Crews lay straw in a grid pattern across the surface, so wind speed drops close to the ground and sand grains lose momentum. Less momentum means fewer grains moving, and fewer moving grains means fewer fresh dunes forming right where the road needs clearance. That bought time and created a stable window for planting. It also exposed the long game. Barriers alone cannot carry a highway through shifting dunes for decades. The system needed a second layer that could keep working through heat, wind, and dust without constant rebuilding. In 2003, the Tarim Desert Highway Ecological Shelter Belt project began. The goal was a protective belt of vegetation on both sides of the highway, wide enough to slow wind and trap sand before it reaches the road. Technical descriptions in research and project reporting put the shelter belt at 436 kilometers long and roughly 72 to 78 meters wide, with a total area around 3,128 hectares. A project write-up described 144 wells built to supply irrigation and a planting scale of about 20 million shrubs and trees. The plant choice was deliberate. This belt leaned on desert shrubs with serious salt and drought tolerance, including species used widely in research on the project like tamarix, haloxylon, and caligonum. These shrubs stay low and dense, which matters because sand transport happens close to the ground. Vegetation in a desert survives only with water, and the desert offers no easy surface supply. Instead of building open canals, the project built a buried distribution network. The same outlet described about 22,000 kilometers of water supply pipelines laid through the belt system. That number changes how you picture the project. The green corridor is the visible layer. The core build is a utility grid hidden under dunes, pushing water to countless emitters like an industrial irrigation machine. machine. Fresh water is scarce inside the Taklamakan. The project relied on local saline groundwater pumped from wells. Saline means the water carries dissolved salts. One peer-reviewed study on the belt reported irrigation groundwater salinity ranging from about 2.82 to 29.7 grams per liter, depending on the location. That input creates an immediate engineering problem. Salt can keep plants alive for a while, then slowly poison the root system if the system loses control. Drip irrigation is the core technology that makes saline groundwater usable at this scale. Drip irrigation delivers small, controlled flows right at the root zone through emitters. That cuts evaporation and keeps water focused where roots can actually use it. A PLOS-1 study included a schematic of the drip system that reads like a piping diagram. A well house feeds a main pipe, then a double branch pipe, then capillary tubes. Emitters along the tubes release water at regular spacing. In that schematic, the spacing between capillary tubes is 1 or 2 meters, and the spacing between emitters is 1 meter. Every part of that geometry serves one goal: uniform watering in an environment that punishes unevenness. This project lives on timing. Researchers studying the belt have reported irrigation intervals that change with season, with shorter intervals during peak heat and longer intervals as conditions ease. One study described intervals on the order of 10 days in summer and about 15 days in other periods, paired with a per-plant water volume target. Intervals like these keep plants alive during extreme heat while reducing salt stress. Long gaps let roots breathe and salts redistribute. Shorter gaps keep shrubs from drying out during the hottest stretch. Sandy soil behaves like a fast-draining filter. Water infiltrates quickly, then the surface dries fast in desert heat. A study tracking water dynamics along this highway reported that infiltration after irrigation drops off rapidly, with the main infiltration window closing within about 2 days. After that, evaporation dominates at the surface. Evaporation leaves salts behind. Researchers track this with electrical conductivity, often shortened to EC. Higher EC means more dissolved ions, which signals higher salinity. In one reported observation, surface EC climbed sharply after irrigation cycles while deeper layers stayed more stable, showing that salt pressure concentrates near the top layer. Over time, salts can form crusts on the surface. A water journal study focused on these crusts along the belt and found that thickness increases quickly in early years, then growth slows with a stabilization assumption around the 12th or 13th year after planting. This matters because it shows the project can settle into an operating equilibrium. The surface becomes saltier while managed drip irrigation keeps a viable moisture zone around roots below. This is still a trade. Plant selection, spacing, and irrigation control have to respect salt behavior for the belt to remain stable long term. A buried irrigation network makes sense only if water use stays within local supply. The same outlet presented reserve and recharge figures for groundwater along the highway corridor and argued that project water use stays far below annual recharge in that accounting. It also gave a per hectare water use limit intended to keep operations in bounds. Those limits turn a dramatic build into a system that can keep running year after year. Water is heavy. Pumping water through desert pipes takes energy, and remote energy supply creates risk. For years, diesel generators powered parts of the system. That kept water moving, but it also meant fuel logistics and high operating costs. In 2022, Xinhua reported a conversion project using photovoltaic power, meaning solar panels, to replace diesel pumps along the belt. The report estimated the switch would cut diesel use by about 1,000 tons and reduce carbon dioxide emissions by about 3,410 tons per year. A separate Xinhua report described the upgrade of 86 well stations using photovoltaic power. Carbon savings are a bonus. The operational gain is steadier pumping. Stable pressure keeps emitters consistent. Consistent emitters keep shrubs alive. The belt looks natural from the driver's seat, but the water system runs like industrial equipment. A well station typically includes a well casing, a pump, filters, valves, and a control box. The casing is the line shaft that keeps the well from collapsing. The pump lifts groundwater to the surface. Filters catch grit and fine sand that would otherwise clog emitters. Valves regulate flow so pressure stays steady along a long pipe run. Pressure matters because drip systems depend on repeatable flow at each emitter. Too much pressure pressure and fittings fail faster, too little pressure, and the far end of a line dries out first. This is where basic hydraulics becomes survival. Hydraulics is the study of how fluids move in pipes. In a desert drip network, hydraulics decides whether the belt stays continuous or breaks into weak sections. Saline irrigation creates a slow threat that never shows up on a daily patrol log. Salt moves with water, then stays behind when water evaporates. The project relies on a drip delivery and timing to manage that, but crews still watch the soil. Researchers often report salt using EC and units like DS per meter, which stands for decisiemens per meter. Higher DS per meter means higher conductivity, which usually means more dissolved salts. The key operational goal is simple: keep the active root zone wet enough to support growth and keep salt buildup concentrated near the surface where plants have fewer fine roots. This highway project also sits inside a bigger national push. In November 2024, Reuters reported that China completed a 3,000-kilometer greenbelt around the Taklamakan as part of a long-running effort to curb desertification. The highway belt is a narrow, more engineered cousin of that idea, focused on keeping a transportation corridor open instead of enclosing a desert edge. Different goals, different tools, same reality. Wind and sand never negotiate. A project this long lives or dies on inspection. Pipes leak, valves clog, drip outlets wear down, and sand buries access points. A single broken connection can starve a strip of plant that already operates on tight margins. Local reporting from Xinjiang described well houses staffed along the corridor, with workers checking irrigation conditions and repairing fittings or replacing parts when failures appear. That maintenance work is the quiet hero of the entire system. Without it, the belt thins, gaps appear, and the wind starts rebuilding dunes right where the road cannot afford them. The belt keeps upgrading because the desert keeps applying pressure. In late 2025, Xinhua described a smart pipeline upgrades along the highway and said the belt holds more than 20 million drought-tolerant plants, framing it as part of a larger desert control push. Smart pipelines in this context mean better monitoring and control, so leaks and pressure problems get caught earlier and water losses stay lower. That is what scale demands. A corridor this long needs sensors and discipline, never guesswork. Many headlines focus on planting in a desert. The core engineering lives underground. Salty groundwater gets pumped from wells, pushed through buried pipelines, rationed through emitters, and delivered on a schedule tuned to heat, roots, and salt movement. That hidden water network keeps a living barrier alive long enough to protect a highway running through one of the most relentless dune fields on Earth. The result is simple. A road stays open, supply chains move, and the desert loses a little control.